let me invite our esteemed panelists to the stage. First and foremost, Chris and Ben, the two British Muslim gentlemen. Please, with a huge round of applause. And now, please welcome to the stage Kawal Ahmed. She's an entrepreneur and activist. Kawal, please. And now, last but not the least, Sunita Alizadeh. She's a rapper and also an activist. Sunita, please. All right, thank you very much once again. I actually want to start this panel by asking my audience something before I come to my guest, because I think that's going to somehow create the basis of our discussion. Remember I mentioned polarization, the word polarization in my introductory remarks. We have a small sample here, but certainly a very talented one. I want to ask you, raise your hands if you think that the world that we live in today is getting more and more polarized every day. It's difficult for me to make a guess, but I think about 50% of the audience here thinks that the world is getting more and more polarized. Let me ask another question. Do you think that before social media, we as a global community were more united?
I agree.
Okay, so that's a no. Not many people. Okay. So certainly that goes to show that social media has somewhat connected our world today. But again, given the fact that about 50%, roughly 50% of the people who are here said that polarization is worsening every day, that means we need to do something about it, right? And this is where community leadership comes into place. Kawal, I want to begin with you because you have this wonderful page, wonderful community of Soul Sisters in Pakistan. And this has certainly inspired hundreds of thousands, not just in Pakistan, but across the world. And I'm sure that those who are present here right now have similar ideas. They want to empower their community. They want to do something about it. But before they can actually materialize their ideas, they have to think about the challenges. So can you explain to us what kind of challenges you faced when you started this page, and tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. I just want to start off with saying thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you to TRT World and you, of course, for moderating this. So when you start something like Soul Sisters or anything that is based on telling the truth in today's world, you're going to be going against the tide. And it's not just going to be any tide, it's going to be a tsunami. Because it takes a long while and it takes a lot of passion, integrity, grit to go against this tide and to tell people the truth. And that is what Soul Sisters did. My community was founded in a society where women are traditionally silenced. Conversations around domestic violence or harassment or just women's rights were unheard of, especially when I started 12 years ago. And so when I first started, the first resistance came from home. People around me, pointing fingers, putting labels. They called us the women who were out there to destroy the fabric of society, because in societies that are specifically South Asian, talking about what happens inside your home is like airing your dirty laundry. And we were doing exactly the opposite. We were going out there and we were talking about it. So when you start something like this, you should know and you should be aware of the fact that it's going to be challenging, but then you have to carry through with it. Because when you're telling the truth, it's not going to come easy. Everybody's going to be against you, even people who you consider your own, your friends, your family. But I feel like the reward is very great. Because once you get there, once you start building that community, once you find out that you can change lives, even as a person, even if you don't have a degree, even if you're sitting at home and you just decide that you're going to tell the truth about something that happened in your neighborhood, or you're going to talk about something that happened to your friend, or somebody who works for you, you can make a change in their life. And when you see that change happening, whether it takes a year, whether it takes 3 months, whether it takes 10 years, that is going to be enough to be, you know, something that drives you to your next purpose. So I think that's probably where I'd want to start off my story with.
Let me throw a quick follow-up here. You mentioned the challenges, but how did you overcome these challenges? Because as I understand, the biggest challenge you faced was within the society.
Oh, that is a difficult one because it wasn't easy. I have been trolled. I've gotten death threats. Even to this date, I get trolled for what I do. And you know, just like you said, has social media made the world, like, has it made it more polarized? Has it made it more divisive? It has, because it's given every single person the right to come online and say whatever they want. I could be sitting in Canada, and they could say that, oh, she's in Pakistan, she's been married 13 times, she finds a new husband every year, just so that, you know, they can create this image about me so that other people would be scared of me. How I battled this is, again, with passion, with creating a close, connected group of people who believed in my work, with humor, and most importantly, with storytelling. I think for me, storytelling was the biggest asset, because when I started telling stories of the people in my community, that's when I started seeing change happen. Because when you tell an honest and true story, wherever you tell it, there is no way that that story is not going to champion for you. Your story can literally make or break the world, and we're seeing that across the world right now. We're seeing that in Palestine. Them putting their stories out there made such a big difference. It created awareness. It made people think about an issue that they would have otherwise not known of, right? So I think that for me, my biggest tool has been storytelling. And again, when you talk about using social media for good, storytelling is one thing that can really be used, because social media democratizes storytelling. You don't have to go through layers of bureaucracy. You don't have to go to a producer. You just have to pick up your camera. You just have to tell your story, put it on Instagram, TikTok, whatever your platform is, and, you know, get it out there.
Thank you very much. Fascinating insights. Now, Sunita, I want to come to you. I understand that you faced threats of child marriage at a very young age, and you turned to music as a form of resistance. I mean, of course, at the time, you wouldn't have thought that your story would turn into a global struggle, a global movement. Can you tell us a bit more about what you faced and how did you become who you are today?
So at age 10, I was told that I was going to get married. At age 10, I was actually excited for it, because for us girls in Afghanistan, we were limited in terms of having a role model, having access to education. And the thing that was possible for us, the only thing, was marriage. But fortunately, it called off. And then it happened again when I was 16 years old. At that time, everything has changed for me. I wanted to be more than a wife. I wanted to have my own life. And in the school where I was, every single girl that I knew in that classroom at an NGO, they came with the same story. Slowly, one by one, my classmates, they disappeared. And a close friend of mine, one day she came. She used to be the happiest in our group. She came with bruises on her face because of fighting child marriage. So then it was my turn. I knew that I wanted to have a different future from my mom, my sisters, my friends. So I decided that I need to share my story. Even though my family wasn't listening, the society was all against me. It felt like I was all alone and the society against me. So I heard Eminem rapping. And one day I was feeling so devastated, the fact that my friend left and I never saw her again. So I started using rap music, and I wrote Daughters for Sale, a song that told my story and the stories that I wanted to share of my friends. And through that music, I received a full scholarship to come to the US to study. And there were many challenges on the way. For example, my family, they didn't know I was using music, because for them it was haram. And then when I got to the US, I called them, I let them know I'm in the US, and they were devastated that I left the country without a chaperone, like my brothers. So it's this issue is still happening, especially in Afghanistan. When the Taliban came to power, girls are being sold as young as 8 years old. And I decided to tell my story, to share it through music, because the power of single stories, we need that power today more than ever, because if we want to create a change, we have to have a story for it. We have to give people a reason why they need to act.
Do you believe right now in 2025, what you've just described to us is certainly not an isolated story? It happens to many women, many girls in countries like Afghanistan. Do you think it's getting better now with social media, with more awareness, with more world leaders taking to the world stage and talking about women's rights?
I think because of the power of social media, it's more obvious now. There are more stories out there, and definitely it's still happening. Women in Afghanistan, they are pushed back 20 years now, and the way to fight poverty and having access to safety is basically getting married for them. And I think slowly it's going to change because of social media. People are finding their own voices, and many individuals in different countries like Iran, Afghanistan, back then they didn't really know all the rights that they have. And now they know what's happening around the world, what kind of rights they could have. They could have access to education. So this is the reason why they're standing up. For example, in Iran, you see that women, they stood on the streets with men, they fought, they lost lives. But in return, now they have a little bit of freedom. They decide if they want to wear a scarf or not. So I believe with the power of education and communities, we could eliminate child marriage. It's going to take a long time because powerful and lasting change will take a long time for it to touch it from the root.
Well said. Thank you very much. Now, Christopher and Ben, let me come to you. So I read your story, and there's this one question that I have on my mind about your story, and I don't know if you want to answer first or you. I'll let you decide because you have this connection. As two British Muslims, do you believe there is an inherent tendency
we've turned our back on our nation, on our culture. But to be honest, I've become more British since becoming a Muslim, like with my brogues and everything like that. And, you know, during our journeys, you know, we've looked into like the British Muslim history, and that, you know, Abdullah William Quilliam used to go around on a horse. He'd wear like a Victorian suit and everything. And, you know, these histories seem to be hidden. So, in fact,
Yes.
if anything, you know, we're doing what our ancestors did.
You know, as someone who works with the media, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason why this is happening, or this has happened in the past, is because of how mainstream Western media has framed Islam.
Exactly.
And of course, that has an impact on the minds of people. I want to ask our audience, do you agree with this, that media has played a role in spreading Islamophobia across the world? Well, I think it's a moment of shame for media. I mean, I work in the industry, but it's important to reflect on it. Within communities, how do you think people can counter that narrative created by the media?
For us, what we try, it depends upon the community. So for us, what we try and do is tell people, go back to the originality of how you should be as a good Muslim. So if we're speaking to Muslims, we're trying to tell them that, look, make sure, for example, you're not littering in the streets. Make sure you're not spitting on the road. Make sure you're having the best of characteristics, and showing people within specifically the UK how Islam actually is as in comparison to how Muslims sometimes can be. Having said that, our work on top of that is by the suits, by the, you know, the whole
The imagery.
the imagery. The imagery is powerful, And one of the ways we're trying to beat that is by showing ourselves online that it doesn't matter about whether you're from Afghanistan, Pakistan, the UK, the US, wherever it may be. Islam can be a religion that's multi-ethnic, multi-diverse, and anybody can embrace it. And that itself breaks down this powerful imagery in the media that Islam is a foreign religion and these people are foreigners and they're a threat to Western civilization. But no, in reality, practicing it on the ground with the people, showing the true characteristics and good manners and inviting people, that is how we break stereotypes. So it's actually, in reality, quite funny because the practice is not online. The practice is offline with the people on the streets.
Well said. Okay, it all started this hatred or Islamophobia first began within societies. Then it was adopted by mainstream media and pushed on people's screens. And then we live in an age of social media, right? It's also being pushed on social media. So what are your tips to our young audience here? How do we counter that? Because it's all about, protecting the community. And it's really important to counter this hate against Muslims.
I think, like Christopher said, like the old being said, we have to show the best of characters and like show what our beautiful religion teaches us to do and how to behave. And I think with us, we add a sprinkle of British humor, Morecambe and Wise. And I think people, it breaks down that barrier that, you can have your identity about where you're from and like have your Britishness in our case.
But tips for the audience.
Oh, tips for the audience. Oh, blimey.
Yes.
I think just showing, just good character, like having a smile.
Yeah, you don't
Having
need
a
to
smile,
post
yes.
everything online.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw a video the other
Quality
day.
over quantity.
They showed somebody, if social media didn't exist, would you go knocking on your neighbor's door and say, I ran 12 kilometers today and I did this route and, do you like it? It would be a bit weird, wouldn't it?
Well, if I'm trying to impress someone, I might.
Yeah, you might. I would give credit to you. I'd be happy if you knocked on my door. But yeah, you don't need to post everything. Really, we need to really, I think, consider before we post, before we click share, is this going to benefit me? Is this going to help us? Or is this going to be a detriment? And I don't think people think enough before
Have
they
a bit
click
of
share.
wisdom. Have a bit of hikmah with what you do.
Great. Let me put this to Kamal. Kamal, what do you think about this?
I think the 100% right. That's particularly why I chose to go in the space that I did on social media, in building communities and creating impact through storytelling. And just coming back to how a story can create impact. Back in 2019, when I first started my podcast, there was a woman called Zainab. Zainab came to me. She had posted on Soul Sisters, and she was going through an emotionally abusive marriage, and she was asking for advice because she was expecting. So she asked the community, what should I do? Should I stay in this marriage because this is my only chance of raising a baby? Or can I raise a baby as a single independent woman in Pakistan? And on that thread, there were thousands of comments, and multiple women offered her a job. They said, you can do it. We will be your support. We will help you do it. Anyway, fast forward, Zainab ended up coming on my show as soon as she got divorced and when she had her baby. And at that time, she was this very shy, meek woman, and she was telling me the story of how she left that marriage and how society doesn't even recognize emotional abuse, although Islam does, but society doesn't. And all of that, and she said that, let's see what happens in my future. My baby is 3 months old, etc., etc. Her episode reached 12.7 million people, and her story resonated with a very large audience. 5 years later now, in 2024, I interviewed Zainab again. It's been 5 years. She's done an MBA. She's done PMP. She's working. She drives a sports bike across Karachi with her daughter in the back seat. And she says, my daughter sits like this in the car, on the bike, and she looks at everybody. And she says, Mama, I think everybody is proud of you just like me. And then she said to me that when I came on the show and I put my truth out there in words, I felt my truth too. Because I wasn't ready to embrace what I had become. But when I put my story out there, it changed not just the lives of 12.7 million people who watched it, but also my own life. And that's why I think that when you tell a story on social media, it has to be worth something. It doesn't have to be everything, but it has to be worth something. And you have to think about how does what I tell today impact my life and how does it change somebody else's life. So I do agree with you, to put it
Oh,
short.
thank you. Thank you ever so much.
It's good that we are in agreement, right?
Yeah.
There's no debate going on here, but certainly fascinating insights, Kawal. Sunita, let me come to you. Of course, what we discussed right now, what we just discussed, was about the message that we are sending to the general public with the use of social media. But of course, the world leaders also have a responsibility. They regularly speak at international forums, the United Nations, and different platforms across the world. I want to ask you about Afghan women in particular. What kind of message do you think these world leaders should be talking about on global stages so that there is more of an impact and the plight of Afghan women can be addressed the way it should be?
So sometimes speaking at high-level events or to world leaders, it can be incredibly disappointing because you go there, you speak about the issue that you shared years ago, and then you're invited again to talk about the same issue over and over. The only change that you basically see sometimes, it's the color of their suits, it's the food menu. So it can be very disappointing, but I try to not be hopeless. So when I talk to world leaders, I don't want to focus on things that labels, like I don't want to call women victims. I refer to them as engineers, doctors, and scientists that if we invest in them, this world could have been a different possible place for everyone. So I try to tell them what is missing really in Afghanistan, because women in this situation under the Taliban regime, if they continue to live under this situation, then this means they are very powerful, they're strong, and they have passion. And I'm trying to help through my story, through my social media and music, to inspire women to fight for their rights, because in every story, having dream and having a goal is the reason why we continue. And I hope that the world leaders see the possibility in every young people that they could be the next generation, next leader to run this world. So I'm basically hoping that someone in the future, I haven't seen any yet, some leaders in the future will invest not in personal interests, in their own power, but in humanity and individuals.
Well said. Now, Christopher and Ben, see, community leadership starts from grassroots levels, right? And we just spoke about world leaders. And some of them, as many would say, have personal interest. They're selective when talking about issues that matter humanity. With the rise of fascism, far-right policies, especially across the West, do you believe there's a responsibility over there among leaders that they should be empowering the youth when it comes to community leadership? Is it happening? If not, what would be our message to them?
The disconnect from leaders and people not just in the UK, but people of the world, is immense. Leaders are no longer connected to us, and we're no longer connected to them. And what I say is, what is quite funny is that we use our whiteness and being males because we want to empower people like yourself. We want to hear women's voices as well. We were saying the other day that many programs during Ramadan, they take footage of women and they always ask, oh, what are you cooking? I don't want to hear what women are cooking. I want to hear what women's spiritual journeys are. I want to hear the stories beyond the food. They're more than that.
And the incredible things that they're doing, you know, to benefit the society
Yes,
as well.
and the leaders take responsibility. And if they don't take responsibility, we have to. We have no choice. And we try and connect ourselves through social media to do that. And without going into too much detail, we all know what's going off in the world. But still, we can only
We have to
do
fill
so
in that
much.
plug, basically. Fill in the hole.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on one thing that you mentioned about this disconnect between leaders and the general public. But why do you think it's worsening? We have social media now. Leaders can talk to the public directly. They don't need to appear on a state television or go for interviews to private broadcasters. They can just open their phones and talk to the public. And they're doing that. But still, there's this gap. Why?
So in the literature, particularly in terms of far right and divisions within different communities, they talk about, for example, socio-economic circumstances. So say, for example, somebody's grown up in a very deprived area, doesn't have much money, and then suddenly sees, quote unquote, some foreigners coming in as doctors and nurses and getting loads of money. It's very easy for the politician or the leader to blame the immigrant or the
moral
migrant.
panic, yeah.
It's the moral panic. It's then people over there, they're coming to our country and taking our jobs.
Because they want to focus the real issues on the vulnerable.
It's the
That's what I'd say.
scapegoat.
Yeah, the scapegoat. Yeah,
and then
classic.
and then they take that migrant as the imagery, as a powerful imagery,
the
as the
media
foreigner,
builds it up.
and the media plugs it up, and then the people who are growing up in these socio-economic poor circumstances suddenly become naive and think, yeah, you know what? Abdul next door, he has more money than me, but he's only been here for 2 months, and I've grown up here all my life, and I can barely afford a loaf of bread. So we've got to get rid of Abdul. But in reality, Abdul is the one that's there when he has a heart attack. Abdul is the doctor. Abdul is the lifesaver. But unfortunately, it is the leaders and that disconnect that blames the migrants to suit their own goals, which you alluded to earlier, the corruption. And what can we do about it? We try our best, but social media certainly isn't helping at the moment. It's all about individualism, unfortunately, even though it's supposed to connect us.
A round of applause for Abdul, because there are many Abduls out
Many
there.
Abduls. Round of applause for Abdul.
Kamal, let me come to you. Of course, this is something that is having an impact on the youth as well, and this is another reason, this disconnect between the leadership and the general public. This is why we need to bring community leadership into place. What are your tips to the youngsters here who want to start, who want to become a community leader, who want to start their own community?
Most importantly, find your niche. Find what it is that you're passionate about, whether it's helping people earn from home, or whether it's helping rural communities, whether it's helping people out in disasters, or whether it's empowering women through conversations. I think it's very important to define what it is that you want to do. A lot of people go into building communities with a very broad spectrum of, I just want to be famous, I just want to be big, I just want to have like 1 million people following me. That's not how it's going to work. Until and unless you know what your story is going to be, what your purpose is going to be, it's always the purpose that helps lead you. And that's why, I look at them, I look at Sunita, and I know that these people, they had a purpose. They got where they are because they knew what they wanted to do with their lives. Having said that, going to your previous question about leadership, hate, and just inciting violence against minorities or against people, I wanted to add to this only because, not just as a storyteller, but also as a Pakistani, because just 2 days ago, Pakistan has been dragged into a war with its neighboring country, India. And that mindset of war has been fueled by the same rhetoric that a war is nationalistic, a war is important, we have to fight these people, without really addressing the underlying issues, without really looking at the fact that in a war, there are no winners, there are just losers. Everybody loses. Without understanding the fact that this is not going to be any ordinary war, it's going to be between 2 nuclear states. And when we talk about building communities, when we talk about a world where it's become so easy for people to love each other, where people find, their partners on screen, we're finding ways, our leaders are finding ways to divide us. It's a question that we should all ask ourselves. And when we're building our own communities, we have to understand that our purpose should first and foremost be to bring people together. It should be to create love. It should be to to finish these divisions, whether they're of ethnicity, whether they're religious, whatever they are. I think it's in today's world, in today's landscape, this is one thing that I just really feel passionate about.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to
Glenn,
also
please go
add
ahead.
to that.
Yeah.
because it's very important for people who are going to start to care for others and give away whatever they have, energy, time, money. So one thing that I always tell my friends, people who I met, is that don't be afraid of failure, because when we start to make a positive change, it will always take a long time, and you might not succeed in the first or second or third shot. So you always have to try. You just have to be committed for the cause that you really care about, because whatever change you make, it's important. It doesn't have to be changing the world. It can be one person in your own community, and then this is how it spreads out.
But one thing that you mentioned is right on point. When someone actually thinks about making an impact or getting on social media, being a community leader, believe it or not, this idea of becoming famous does process his or her mind, right? And sometimes it overcomes the actual purpose.
Yeah.
So, you're all famous people here. How do we avoid doing that?
I guess what is really, really important in doing such a job is, you mentioned that you have to really care about an issue. And if it's for fame, if it's for something else, which I believe for you guys to be here, it's for something else more connected to human rights. I just believe that you have to have a passion, you have to have a story, a reason for whatever you're fighting for. It's not a wrong thing. It's not a bad thing to do it for fame, for money, because we all have different interests in life. So the wrong thing, the problem here is that if you're saying I'm standing for human rights and you're using it as a business to gain money, attention, power, this is the issue. And if you see that this is happening around you, I want you guys to speak the truth. And whenever we talk about what's going on, it will eventually come to truth. So this is what we should do, see the truth.
Thank you very much.
Can
Seeing
I
the
just
truth.
add
Please
to
go
that?
ahead. Yeah.
What Sunita just said about having a purpose, and which was also what I was saying. Sometimes when we look at famous people online and they're just, cooking, or they're dancing on TikTok, or they're traveling, that is also their passion. They start off with one vacation or one recipe or one song like she did, and they made it there. So, but when you start running after the numbers, or when you start looking at, oh, my video just reached like 5 people, I'm a failure, it's never going to work out. It's only going to add to the stress. And I think that's also a cause of mental anguish in so many young people today, because they don't feel validated unless they see numbers. So to understand that you cannot compromise your mental health for the sake of external validation, you have to understand that validation is inside you, and it will come when you do something you truly, truly love. And I'm saying that as somebody who does that every day.
Thank you very much. Well said. The two British gentlemen, any tips for the audience?
Yes. First of all, use social media to take back your narrative. For years and years and years, even this country, many other countries have used this country as the sick man of Europe, tried to degrade its people, tried to degrade whether you're Muslim or not, but people of the East. They've tried to degrade it through the literature, through the film, through the imagery. But you can use social media to take back your narrative. Don't allow them anymore to write your narratives for you. You write your own narrative on social media. Take it as an opportunity. Use it for goodness. Don't use it for badness. Use it for goodness. And even, like the two ladies here alluded to, even if it changes one person's life, you've done something good. And that is what matters.
What else could I add to that? Yeah, just one little step at a time. Even if it's like 5 people, 10 people, whatever.
Go for it.
Do good. Yes, Istanbul. Be passionate about what you do, even if it's so small. The fact is that we're here. Do that good. Have that smile. Do it with a smile, and of course, always say cheerio after.
Yes, always say cheerio.
So you mentioned the East and the West, right? Of course, there's this divide, and it's only getting worse day by day, especially if you look at the political dynamics of the world today. And you know, this is something that I've been saying as a journalist on different platforms whenever I get the opportunity to speak. And I'm specifically talking about the media because it has a huge impact. You know, if you look at certain countries, they're covered in a certain way, and of course the West has immense influence over how these countries are covered. But I'm of the opinion that, you know, those colonial times are now gone. The West, in today's world, does not have any sort of moral superiority over people from the other side of the world. But again, sending this message across the West is very difficult because people in the East understand that the West is not superior to them.
Yeah.
But people in the West, there are still many polls have been conducted on this particular subject. They still think that they have some sort of moral superiority. You two come from the West. What's the solution to this?
I think uncovering what the East has bought, like soap, mocha, you know, the cappuccinos is from Yemen, apparently. I didn't know that before. Uncover the hidden histories, the discoveries. You know, the former Scottish First Minister, he did a viral video, a short, and he was listing the contributions that Muslims have done. Because in the West, how I see it anyway, is that it's just the West and that's it. The East didn't contribute anything, and that's just not true. The amount of stuff that's come on, like with the clocks, the watches, the planes, and everything, these stories need to be shown.
Yeah.
And we need to say it loud and proud.
I think
Why
it's
should
the
we be-
overarching theme
Yeah.
here, isn't it, with all of us? It's that telling the stories, using social media to make sure that our stories are
being
heard.
told. And what we're doing now, because it's all right talking about the past, but what we're doing now and tomorrow. I think sometimes that we do talk about the past.
And
a
it's
lot.
self-accountability,
Yes,
like we
exactly.
said earlier. You know, it's fair enough we're saying that, you know, we've given this and this and this and this to civilization, but then we go and throw our chicken boxes on the floor.
Yeah.
We don't talk to our neighbor.
people
We don't
talk.
smile at anybody.
Yeah.
We have to have a bit of self-accountability here. We can't expect everybody to respect us, but we don't respect them.
And we shouldn't have this victim mentality either.
Respect is mutual,
Yes,
isn't it?
absolutely.
I want to add to that.
Go ahead.
As women, I feel specifically from the East, when we start, you know, using our voices and speaking up, the West gets really excited because then they found that poster child. Oh, that woman who's going to speak for women empowerment and these oppressed women of the East. And I just want to say that when they come to you and when they ask you to become their poster child, because they think that, oh my God, now we're going to use her and we're going to show how badly treated the East is and how their men are barbaric, we have to tell them that our story is ours to tell. We can fix our problems. We're not coming to them as poverty porn. We are there because we are telling our stories in our way, and they don't have to come fix our problems. And I found that when I was, you know, slowly like becoming a global voice, that's what I would be approached for, that, hey, can you come and speak on this panel about how like Pakistani women are facing like so much oppression? And I'm like, no, I don't want to sit on your panel because sitting on your panel doesn't help me get to the people I want to help. Sitting on your panel only validates the voices of all of the white people in the room who are going to say that, oh, we knew this poor woman from Pakistan, you know, she needed our help. And that's why, you know, we send our people there to fix that problem. So being sure of where you want to be when you're using your voice.
Very well said, Sunita. My director is telling me we're out of time, but I will feel really bad if I don't give you the last word. Any last comments?
I'm just going to keep it short, and I already mentioned it that I'm very disappointed in leaders, so I don't want to be disappointed in others. When you leave, my question, my khahish for you guys is that when you leave, don't forget all these stories, all these points that brought to you. We traveled from around the world just to be here today to share whatever we know with you. So when you're at home, just remember what you can do in your community and be the next leader who really makes a positive change.
Thank you very much. It's been a fascinating discussion, and you know, one thing that I'm really impressed about that we had the audience sitting here since the beginning, since my colleague Efnan Han opened Next Forum, and it really goes to show how interested this audience is in community leadership. So before thanking my panelists, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you for standing up for issues that matter our world today. Christopher and Ben, Kawal, Sunita, thank you very much for joining us in this panel, and thank you very much all for coming here to Next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Right, cheerio, Istanbul.
Cheerio.
And now we have a small coffee break of 15 minutes. Then my colleague Kubra Koch, TRT World's correspondent, will be with you with another exciting panel. Thank you very much.